Hello everyone, and welcome back to our analysis of Julius Caesar, Act 1, Scene 2. So we're going to continue today's discussion looking at Act 1, Scene 2, in particular, the private discussion that Brutus and Cassius are going to have with one another, the beginnings of this conspiracy against Caesar. So just a reminder, we are still in the same exact scene. So literally all we've done is hit play to our pause from last week. So we're still on February 15th with Caesar victoriously marching back into Rome, but now we're going to see the beginning of Cassius and Brutus's private conversation with one another. So while everyone is off at the races watching Mark Antony, we're going to see the beginning of this conspiracy against Caesar. So as a reminder, we're only going to be looking at two characters for today. The first being Brutus. Remember, Brutus is supposed to be a friend of Caesar, but the one thing that he fears, this one figure gaining ultimate power over Rome, is the one thing that Caesar is primed to take. So we're going to see that Brutus has cause, in his mind at least, to fear Caesar. Cassius, on the other hand, is not in the same shoes as Brutus, so he is no friend to Caesar. He is in fact the last member of the first triumvirate, that threesome that shared power, and he's already seen Pompey, one of the members of this triumvirate, fall to Caesar. So his attempt to start this entire conspiracy is going to be to protect himself. Without further ado, let's go ahead and continue our reading of Julius Caesar, Act 1, Scene 2, starting on page 698 of your textbooks with line 32. Brutus, I do observe you now of late. I have not from your eyes that gentleness and show of love as I was wont to have. You bear too stubborn and too strange a hand over your friend that loves you. Cassius, be not deceived. If I have veiled my look, I turn the trouble of my countenance merely upon myself. Vexed I am of late with passions of some difference, conceptions only proper to myself, which give some soil perhaps to my behaviors. But let not therefore my good friends be grieved, among which number Cassius be you one, nor construe any further my neglect than that poor Brutus, with himself at war, forgets the shows of love to other men. Then, Brutus, I have much mistook your passion, by means whereof this breast of mine hath buried thoughts of great value, worthy cogitations. Tell me, good Brutus, can you see your face? No, Cassius, for the eye sees not itself, but by reflection, by some other things. 'Tis just, and it is very much lamented, Brutus, that you have no such mirrors as will turn your hidden worthiness into your eye, that you might see your shadow. I have heard where many of the best respect in Rome, except immortal Caesar, speaking of Brutus and groaning underneath this age's yoke, have wished that noble Brutus had his eyes. Into what dangers would you lead me, Cassius, that you would have me to seek into myself for that which is not in me? Therefore, good Brutus, be prepared to hear, and since you know you cannot see yourself as well as by reflection, I, your glass, will modestly discover to yourself that of yourself which you yet know not of. And be not jealous on me, gentle Brutus. Were I a common laugher, or did use to stale with ordinary oaths my love to every new protester, if you know that I do fawn on men and hug them hard, and after scandal them, or if you know that I profess myself in banqueting to all the rout, then hold me dangerous. Flourish and shout. What means this shouting? I do fear the people choose Caesar for their king. Aye, do you fear it? Then must I think you would not have it so. I would not, Cassius, yet I love him well. But wherefore do you hold me here so long? What is it that you would impart to me? If it be aught toward the general good, set honor in one eye, and death the other, and I would look on both indifferently. For let the gods so speed me, as I love the name of honor more than I fear death. So we're going to continue our analysis here in this portion, and we're going to begin by looking at Cassius. And we need to remember that Cassius cannot be trusted, right? Recall that he wants to bring Brutus into the conspiracy to kill Caesar. And while we begin to see in this text that Brutus at least is going to come from a noble and honorable place, Cassius is going to come from a place of deceit. And the first reason why we know that are these 3 lines that I've highlighted. He says that, I see you, Brutus, and I feel like you haven't been giving me the amount of love that you used to. That for some reason you have put me at a distance. And this is extremely cunning on the part of Cassius, because we need to take his word for it, right? We're not given prior knowledge about the relationship between Cassius and Brutus, but we can assume that they're friendly because of Brutus's next words. And Brutus here is essentially going to be taking the blame for this. He's going to tell Cassius that it's not that you have done anything. If anything, I have veiled my look because of something that's going on within me, right? My countenance, my appearance is changed because of an internal struggle. And we know that this internal struggle exists because of how he frames and describes it. It says that he's vexed or troubled, right? Because of these passions that are of some difference within him. And here passions meaning these struggles, these allegiances. So he is going to have this internal struggle, this man versus self, where his true desires are going to be at conflict with what he feels he needs to do to protect Rome. And he again continues, right, these conceptions only proper to myself. So he's saying that it's not you, Cassius, it's me. But he means it, right? And it's this idea that he is struggling with something deeply personal that he doesn't want to reveal to Cassius, or at least doesn't think that it's proper to reveal. And he says that it's these things that have changed my actions, right? Not you, Cassius. And he essentially apologizes, right? That I count you as a friend, Cassius. So don't be grieved if you think that I've changed. If I have changed, it's because of this internal struggle. And he, again, is going to ask Cassius not to construe, not to interpret all of these inner broodings that he's been going through prior to this scene. And again, highlighting how we understand he is having an internal conflict with the fact that he is going to paint this image of he, Brutus, being at war with himself. So just some things to note here, that Cassius is particularly observant of others. This is one of the key characteristics that he displays and something that he uses to his benefit throughout the play. And we also see that Brutus's struggle, this internal war he has, is going to be very reflective of man versus self, that type of conflict we discussed in fiction. And this is going to be something that we see also in Brutus, throughout the entirety of the play. Cassius now is going to continue, and remember, we need to understand who is with Caesar and who is out to get him. We know that Brutus, up until this point, is very much with Caesar. He doesn't have any problem with him in the sense of Caesar as a person, but Cassius does. And he is going to take this new knowledge of Brutus's inner struggle and run with it. And he says that, okay then, Brutus, I've mistook or misjudged your passion or your inner conflicts. And he says, because of this misjudgment on my part, I have kept something from you. Here, this breast of mine hath buried, this personification, right? That he's been driving down, again, the conspiracy. This is where we're going to see it begin to come to light. And he says, tell me, good Brutus, can you see your face? Now, this is a really weird question for us because our quick answer would be, do you have a mirror? Camera? Yeah, of course you can see your face. What do you mean, Cassius? But Cassius doesn't mean it literally. He means it in a metaphoric sense, meaning not can you see your literal face, but can you see who you really are, those inner qualities that you possess? And Brutus, rather depressively, is going to tell him no. And he tells him that you can only see these things by reflection. So here he's trying to say that you can't really know the true inner workings of yourself unless people reflect them back for you. And if we think about it, he's bringing up a very truthful point here, that oftentimes we don't know our best attributes until someone shows them to us, right? We could not understand that maybe we're really good at listening to our friends until our friend brings it up and compliments us on it. And this is essentially what Brutus is saying. And Cassius is going to agree with him. And he begins to go on this long discussion, digging hard into pathos, or that play into emotion. He's going to tell Brutus that he's been lamented or grieved to have to watch Brutus not understand his hidden worthiness, right? Those inner qualities that he possesses. And again, we need to take everything Cassius says with a huge grain of salt, because we understand that Cassius needs Brutus. He needs enforced conspiracy to work, right? Not the other way around. So Cassius is going to do everything he can to persuade Brutus to join him, beginning with this play on emotion. And we see this continuing here, just as he begins to pump up Brutus in terms of you have this hidden worthiness within you, right? That someone needs to show you. He also continues to say that I have heard many of the best respect in Rome, except immortal Caesar, speaking of your goodness, your honor. And this is important for two reasons. One, he continues to bring up the good qualities of Brutus, that he is noble. And here when he says that these best respect in Rome have wished that noble Caesar had his eyes, meaning that he has heard across the street, right, that many people in Rome, high people in authority, wish Brutus to be in charge, not Caesar. So he praises Brutus while at the same time disparaging Caesar, not only sarcastically referring to him as immortal, right? Understanding this not on a literal level. So it's not that Caesar is a god, but here Cassius is using that characteristic of a god to poke fun at Caesar, saying this is how Caesar views himself. And additionally, describing the rule of Caesar as a yoke. So a yoke being the idea of something being a burden. For example, if you go on Google and you search for what a yoke is, don't look at the definition of what happens inside of an egg, not what we're talking about. So a yoke would have been a farming device that you would have put on two oxen. So imagine really big cattle. And this yoke then would attach them to one another. So they would have to move side by side, but it also was very, very heavy. So that's where you get this connotation of a yoke as something that's burdensome. And so here, importantly, Cassius is using that to describe Caesar. So while he praises Brutus, he definitely takes time to disparage or to bring down the image of Caesar. Continuing then, we get to see the intelligent side of Brutus. And one of the things we need to remember is that Brutus is genuinely concerned for Rome. He's not coming from a place of power like Cassius is. And so he's going to get straight to the point and say, what dangers would you lead me into, Cassius? Because this talk, right, the moment that Cassius began to disparage Caesar, that's treason. And Brutus is well to mark it or to be aware of it. And he essentially asks Cassius, what do you want from me? What do you hope that I can do that obviously I don't have the power to do? I can't rule the way that you want me to. And Cassius is going to pick up on this and say, that's just because you cannot see yourself the way that I see you. So well as by reflection, I are glass. Here Cassius is saying, I will show you, Brutus, that you have the strength to do all of this. But before he does that, he needs to make sure that this one huge thing is out of the way. Brutus has very good right to be suspicious of Cassius, right? What's to stop Cassius from tricking Brutus, and then Cassius running to Caesar and pinning the whole conspiracy thing on Brutus? So he's going to say, don't be jealous on me, meaning don't be suspicious of me. And he gives him several reasons why he shouldn't be, right? If I were a common laugher, or if I were a fool, or if I did fawn on men, meaning to flatter them, and then right behind their back scandal them, right? If I were to do all of these treacherous things, if I was a person known for that, then you would have really good right not to trust me. But I haven't done any of those things. And this is important because we're going to establish here that Cassius thinks, and he's saying as much to Brutus, that you can trust me. There's no history of falsehood between us. And because Brutus can now trust him, we then, by extension, should trust everything that Cassius is going to say about Brutus. Here again, we have this flourish and shout, this stage direction. And unfortunately, Brutus lets slip what he's really thinking. And this is good for us, though, because we begin to see why Brutus is struggling so much. We know the heart of that man versus self conflict. And that is, while he loves Caesar, he fears Caesar being king. And Cassius, this is the moment he has been waiting for. And he gets really excited, right? We need to imagine that. You do fear it? This is what he's been longing for. And this opens the gates for the rest of what Cassius is going to tell Brutus. And Brutus confesses, yes, although I love Caesar, I would not want him to be king. But before he dives in any further into this treacherous talk, right, he again asks Cassius, what is it that you want from me? But he's not asking it in the sense of, I don't trust you, let me go. He's asking in the sense of, I love honor. If you place honor before me and death before me, both of these are my options. He says that I look upon both indifferently. He even goes further, let the gods so speed me, as I love the name of honor more than I fear death. And here he's essentially saying, let the gods take me, meaning kill me, end my life, because I will work for honor. I love honor more than I'm afraid of death. And this is really vital because it helps to confirm what we already know about Brutus, that he is a man who values honor and that he is virtuous. And while this is a good characteristic, unfortunately, it's going to be the characteristic that Cassius uses to deceive him. Because now Cassius knows all I have to do is paint this idea of the downfall of Caesar as something that's honorable, and Brutus will do it. That's going to be it for video number 21. In our video for tomorrow, video number 22, we're going to continue to dive into this conversation between Cassius and Brutus, and we're going to see Cassius continue to disparage Caesar and play to Brutus's sense of honor to get him to do what he wants. And we're also going to see that Caesar is going to remain blind to the conspiracy that is out to get him. Please do make sure that you are continuing to take notes as we read through scene 2. We're going to have about 1 or 2 more videos in scene 2. And then once I post the last video, I'm also going to assign a worksheet. So the more you're taking notes as we're going through this scene, the greater help it'll be to you as you complete that worksheet. And finally, just a brief homework assignment following today's video. Just like you did last time, I'd like you to go on Google Classroom and answer the following question. What do we learn about Brutus's character through this internal struggle? So he has this huge man versus self issue going on. What do we learn about his character because of this struggle? What does it reveal? And also, what do we learn about Cassius's character through his dialogue? So what does he reveal through his words? I would like everyone to please answer that by tomorrow midnight, so April 28th at 11:59 p.m. You guys must write and complete sentences, and you need to have a 5-sentence minimum, okay? I gave some leniency for answers in terms of they were missing this aspect, okay? But I won't be next time. It's really simple instructions, guys, okay? So respond to both of those questions in a minimum of 5 sentences. Thanks, and I will see you tomorrow.